huge moment for the American manager as Real Sociedad defeat Barcelona. Incredible stuff here, and now just 1 point is that lead for Alvaro Arbeloa's Real Madrid, 1 point back of Hansi Flick's Barcelona. We have a title race, ladies and gentlemen. Let's bring in now our Spanish football correspondent, Phil Kitrimilides, back with us once again here on Scoreline. Phil, talk to me about this match. Absolute chaos there with all the goals that were disallowed for Barcelona. Real Sociedad just kind of doing just enough to will this across the line. What are your initial reactions to this match?
Guys, how long have we got? I could just sit here and talk about this game for a long time because so much happened. Barcelona will be scratching their heads. They'll be absolutely devastated that they've lost this game because the stats were absolutely ridiculous. They had 3 goals ruled out. They hit the woodwork 4 or 5 times. They had a penalty taken away from VAR, and Alex Remiro made a number of extraordinary saves. The shots are on your screen there in terms of the shots on target. Absolutely ridiculous. The expected goals for Barcelona was 3.69. La Real with an expected goals of just over 1. Somehow Barcelona didn't do what they have been doing all season, and that is finding that firepower when they need it in a game that they absolutely dominated. I was looking at one of the Catalan papers now to try and get their reaction, and they called it incomprehensible and surreal, the game that we saw in San Sebastian tonight. Should have won, really created enough chances, but they didn't. And La Real, credit to them for the way that they defended and the front-footed play that they managed to put on when they managed to get forward. And that is Rino Matarazzo. His idea is he wants his team to play on the front foot more, to be more vertical, to play more forward passes. And I think we've definitely seen that in the 4 matches that he's been in charge. A really big impact from him. He's moved the team away from the relegation zone up the table as well. So a big impact from Rino Matarazzo. But Barca scratching their heads thinking, how on earth have we got nothing out of this game when we absolutely dominated? And the lead at the top of the table has been cut to just 1 point. Who'd have thought when we were here yesterday talking about it being a disaster at the Bernabeu and the fans booing and whistling and it being a historic day for their displeasure at the Bernabeu? But they've cut the gap to one point now. And Liga, there is a league title race in Spain.
This is the beauty of football, right? 1 week, as you said, we could be talking about this the next day. I mean, this is where European football is at this season. You never know what you're going to get. But you had talked about Pellegrino Matarazzo and the job he's done. Draws against Atleti, beating Barcelona. I mean, the sky seems like it's the absolute limit. But what specifically is he doing with this La Real side? Because seeing goals from Oyarzabal, that comes to mind, but it seems to be more than just that.
It is, and like I said, you know, what he wanted to do was the team to play on the front foot more and not too many of these sideward passes. He wants his team to get forward quicker. We saw them trying to high press against Barcelona this evening, and to start with, they did that relatively effectively. It's very difficult to keep that up against Barcelona for 90 minutes. They're an aggressive side, Real Sociedad. They actually commit the most number of fouls in La Liga per match. And we've seen a little bit of that aggression as well from Rino Matarazzo's side, continuing that aggression. And I just think, you know, he had a really good base to work with in terms of there being talented players on this roster. He had a good base of players to work with. And they shouldn't have been down where they were. He took over when they were at a low point just outside the relegation zone. He had time over the winter break to channel his thoughts. He came out in his presentation and said, I've got a plan. I know what I'm going to do here. And slowly he's put that into practice. So yeah, really good result against Atletico Madrid in his first game. They've beaten Barcelona. They've gone away to Getafe, which is an absolute battle, and won. And they came from 2-0 down to win on penalties in the Copa del Rey against Osasuna. So it's been a brilliant start from him. And let's see how far he can take this La Real side, because they are a good team. They do have some good players. They're in 8th spot now in the table. Who knows if he'll get them fighting for European football? When he took over, they were battling relegation.
Yeah, we're definitely rooting for Matarazzo, obviously, as an American, to have success over there managing in Europe and in La Real Sociedad. For Barcelona, this is interesting because I think for the majority of the season, really for the last 2 seasons, we've been talking about the back line and the high line and defensively. They score a lot of goals, but concede a lot of goals. But that hardly hasn't been the case. During this win streak, they have 6 clean sheets in their last 8 matches. Obviously, don't get the clean sheet today. They lose against Real Sociedad. But Is it something to panic here where they maybe need to get back to that, what they were doing defensively, or is this kind of just a luck of the draw today, how things kind of worked out with all of the goals being disallowed and them just giving up chances to a La Real side that was really going for it in this match at home?
Yeah, I think there's something in that as well. And I think, in most, if this game is played 100 times, Barcelona would win 99%. But looking at that back line that we just had on the screen there, it's a young back line. This is a young team. Barcelona have, on average, the youngest squad in La Liga. And sometimes you need... the experience is a word that gets bandied around a lot in football. It just means that you've played a lot of games and you're older than other people. But when you are experienced, you kind of know a few things in how to manage games. And Barcelona occasionally don't know how to manage games. They conceded immediately after finally getting the breakthrough and equalising. You cannot concede the moment that they conceded, and the kind of goal that they conceded as well. It was sloppy, and it just points to me to a little bit of lack of maturity. Particularly, all over the pitch, there are young players without too much experience, and they're quality players. They have played a lot of games despite being youthful, but sometimes they do not necessarily know how to manage matches. Listen, we saw it in the semi-final of the Champions League last season, didn't we, against Inter Milan? Lamine Yamal taking a shot on when he should have taken the ball into the corner and in to go up the other end and score. Those kind of small details, I think, is still something of an issue for Barcelona. But today it wasn't really about their defence. It definitely wasn't about the high line. It was about the miraculous inability for them to get the ball in the back of the net when they had so many chances.
All right, Phil, I want to ask you this question because we've been talking about the demise of Real Madrid, like you mentioned earlier, here with us, where the skies seem to have been falling. They still get the win. Now Barcelona come up today, and they fail to get the win. They lose to la Real Sociedad. You mentioned it earlier. ¿Hay Liga?
Hay Liga, amigos. Yes, of course, Hay Liga. There's basically half the season left, and there's only a point between these two sides. I mean, listen, if you looked at this weekend at the start of the weekend and you're like, Real Madrid at home to Levante and Barcelona away to Real Sociedad, this is a weekend where points can be dropped and the gap can be closed. And then if you look at next weekend, when Barcelona are at home to Oviedo and Real Madrid are away to Villarreal, that could be a weekend where Barcelona get the lead back up again. But listen, these both teams have winnable fixtures in the next 4 games. So let's see where the points are dropped if we get to mid-February with it just being 1 point. I think it's going to be topsy-turvy, and Barcelona have lost tonight. I don't think they deserve to lose tonight, and I think when the dust settles and the adrenaline calms down, they'll be massively disappointed, but at the same time, they will know if we play like this in almost every game, we will win and we will be league champions, because this isn't the kind of result that was disastrous. It wasn't a horror show. It wasn't a terrible performance. Far from it. Whereas there are a lot more question marks about Real Madrid and their performance. That said, it's only a point. Who knows? And we could still have this title race going right down to the wire. At the moment, it's only a point. If I was a gambling man, which I'm not, if I was a gambling man, I'd be putting my money on Barcelona. But you never know with Real Madrid. And, more foolish men have discounted them in the past and then been made to eat their words. But at the moment, Barcelona still very much favourites to win the league title.